This is Wraith from Wraith Rain. I'm an author of serialized gay romance fiction. Every week on this podcast, I'll be reading a chapter from one of my gay fantasy shifter serials called Dragon's Reign. I'll explain at the break how you can find out more about this story and others I write. So let's get to it. Chapter 91. Twisted Words. Don't freeze, don't freeze, don't freeze, Caden thought as he stared at the YouTube influencer Claire Redkins with slightly parted lips and what he was sure was a dopey expression on his face. He was also certain that this behavior was not inspiring confidence in the viewers. So if he had intended to come across as young but wise beyond his years, he was botching it completely. I'm freezing. Oh no, Valerius warned me. But how could he explain everything that had led to him and Valerius being together in a few easily digestible sound bites? There were so many things and so many moments, not to mention so much that he didn't want to share with anyone but Valerius, that there was no way to simply dumb it down to love at first sight, or really, love at first fight. He could see Iolaire and Raziel looking at one another out of hooded eyes. Fire and ice twined together like the symbol in the sky. While the two older reporters were very stiff, he wondered if they thought such questions were unbecoming of a reporter. Claire smiled kindly at him. The tension bled out of Caden little, not because of Claire's evident sympathy at his tongue-tiedness, but because of Valerius's mental presence surrounding him. Valerius was here. The Black Dragon King would protect him from anything. Bulletproof glass, he reminded himself, or rather, dragon scales and Raziel's fire breath. You're nervous, Claire's eyes widened. That's so lame, he smiled back. He thought it was lame. Tilly certainly did. He was failing in the big, cool brother department, he was sure of it. No, genuine, not at all what I expected, Claire said. You sacrificed yourself to save people from a bomb, and then, today on the street, you were so brave, taking charge and being all badass. That you're nervous about being interviewed is really cute. Cute? Oh God, that's probably not what a dragon shifter should be called. Raziel must be rolling in his cavern, Caden thought. Raziel is asleep, snoring loudly as human things bore him, Valerius remarked dryly. Indeed, both their dragons had turned their smoldering looks into fully closed eyes. They appeared to be down for the count. Their wings fluttered in a way that reminded him of dogs or cats, whose back legs would sometimes twitch when they dreamed about running after squirrels. Caden wondered if their spirits were dreaming about flying and chasing cows. I'm sure that Raziel can't contemplate being nervous of three humans. I mean, what could they do to it? Caden pointed out. The reporters like you. The public likes you. You are cute, Valerius said, and Caden heard his internal snort. But you are also brave and true. Own all those qualities. Yeah, but couldn't I be all polished and careful with the press? Caden asked. She only wanted to do a press briefing and practice questions before, and you couldn't have learned all of that in one day. And it wouldn't have worked, Valerius told him. Your face would betray you. Besides, your genuineness is what is winning them over. Go with it. Go with it? Caden contemplated this. If he acted other than true to himself, he wouldn't come across as genuine. If he tried to appear something he wasn't, he had a feeling the press would find out anyways. There was no faster way to lose people than to lie. Claire's smile was starting to appear a little jagged at the edges as he continued to say nothing. She looked down at her phone, where the question presumably was, then back up at him with mute expectation in her eyes. He remained mute himself. Finally, filling the silence, Claire continued on rather desperately. I mean, how do you go from fighting in the skies to pledging eternal love to one another? It is eternal, right? Fated mates and chosen mates, Valerius grumbled, but good-naturedly, though pointedly. Caden's deer-in-the-headlights expression faded after Valerius's grumble. He rather loved that Valerius wanted everyone to know that they had chosen one another. While fate may have had something to do with it, their rational, if love was ever rational, decision to be attracted to one another was something Valerius wanted known. They weren't just two fools falling for one another. They weren't pawns in the hands of fate. They were together, because it was reasonable and right that they were together. Chosen? Claire blinked. We chose each other, Caden managed to say. Now that Valerius had started the conversation for him, he found he could speak again. The ice was melting before the fire. And I would choose him again and again and again. Had he said again too much? He wanted to keep saying it, just keep on repeating it, because he would choose Valerius every time. There was no one else in existence he would want to choose more than the Black Dragon King. He glanced over at Valerius. He could have known exactly what Valerius was thinking if he chose to. He just had to look into the dragon shifter's mind. But he found himself merely glancing swiftly at Valerius' expression and then away to take his own emotional temperature. He was relieved by what he saw. The Black Dragon King had a half smile on his lips that was a play between amusement and awe. It was as if he couldn't quite believe his luck to have Caden at his side. To Caden, that was crazy. Who was he? No one special. But Valerius made him feel special. Valerius had him wanting to reach the heights of specialness. What did the other dragon shifters have to say about that? The rumor is that they came here to court you, Caden. But from that symbol in the sky, it looks like you made your choice well before all of them arrived. At least before the silver dragon shifter, Claire chirped. Shouldn't someone else be asking questions? Caden thought. Come on, ask us something else, anything else. But the other reporters were so still and quiet that they might have been statues. He supposed that even the staid New York Times, let alone a morning show host, wanted the down and dirty about dragon sex. There was never any question. Caden found himself speaking again without thought. It was like a cork had popped and his feelings rushed out of him. It was always Valerius for me. It's always been Valerius. It will always be Valerius. Caden stared down at their clasped hands and felt a rush of happiness. It might not be politic to say what he had, but really it would have been incredibly insulting to Anwar if he'd said he'd given everyone a fair shot and then chosen the Black Dragon King. Anwar had just shown up after all. Besides, it was true, and the truth could never hurt as much as lies in a situation like this. Not that he would ever lie about his feelings for the Black Dragon King. Valerius rubbed his thumb in an infinity symbol on the back of Caden's hand. The symbol above, the symbol below. Everything seemed to have double or triple meanings. While he loved that Valerius's words and actions did so, he wasn't so sure he wanted the reporters to be anything but upfront. So, King Ilarian's words claiming you as his mate were... Claire let the sentence hang. Caden realized his lips had pursed, as if he was tasting something sour at the mention of the green dragon shifter's name. He quickly wiped away the expression. Though Shioni hadn't had long to prep him earlier that day, he was pretty sure she had mentioned something about speaking only neutrally about the other dragon shifters. He assumed facial expressions counted as speaking. He wasn't even supposed to speak highly of any of them, so gushing about Esme or laughing about Tez or grinning about Kayla or enthusing about Jahara wasn't allowed, because it might show them favor, and that had worldwide implications. He now wished he had listened harder to what Shioni had said. Realizing that he'd let yet another silence hang, he quickly got out. The other dragon shifters know how Valerius and I. Well, it was obvious from the first that we were. Well, most of them think it's sweet. He could almost hear Rose rolling her eyes at his choice of words. Tilly was staring at him as if he had vomited on the carpet. Dragon shifters were not sweet. He glanced at Valerius. His mouth kept moving as if he was having an effort to stop from laughing. Oh, God, no. I mean, not sweet, Caden practically shouted. Really, that's not. They think it's nice. Not nice, but cool? No, not cool. I mean, they are cool with it. And, not that they really have anything to say about who we love. We do what we want. Valerius and I are independent dragons here. Valerius snorted. He knew the Black Dragon King had thought he had covered it up with a cough and crossing of legs. Caden wanted to die at that moment. Finally, thankfully, Valerius stepped in and rescued him. I could have saved all of the other dragon shifters the trip if they had reached out to me before flying here. Despite what appeared to be a rocky start, Caden and I quickly found in each other exactly what we were looking for. Caden let out a breath. Yes, exactly. And once things calmed down between us, Valerius was really there for me. I saw his caring, protective side. I know it's a little hard to imagine. Everyone laughed. Caden hung his head but grinned himself. He's a little growly, but he's got the biggest heart. Did you know that you can get some of my gay romance books for free? Every month, I have at least one book free to download, right from Amazon, so you can easily read it on any device. But these books can only be free for 5 days at a time. If you don't want to miss out, just sign up for my mailing list, and I'll send you an email whenever there's a free book available. The link to the sign-up form is in the description down below. There were collective ahs around the room. Not from Lisa and Carlos, but definitely Claire and his sister. "And you, King Valerius? What did you see in King Caden?" Claire asked. Valerius pursed his lips. "Trouble." Caden let out a burst of laughter, which had others joining in on after a moment. When they saw it was a joke, Valerius's broad grin and affectionate raking of fingers through the back of Caden's hair made Caden want to purr, just like Iolaire was as nestled against Raziel's larger body. "In all seriousness, besides Caden's bravery and selflessness, I saw in him change," Valerius continued. His gaze grew thoughtful and distant, as if he were remembering something. "He challenges me to see things differently. He makes me feel the world is new, and that there are so many possibilities." Lisa opened her mouth, but Carlos's stanza of morning show fame stepped in with a question first. "So, does that mean that King Caden is getting his own territory, or staying in yours? And if he stays, will there be some sort of joint leadership?" Caden felt he should have been prepared for this question. Had he been telling his father and his attorneys the answers since the beginning? But it would really be a big deal to reveal everything they planned right now. Every word would be spliced, diced, and dissected. The stability of the world likely hinged on what he said next. If he scuppered any idea of a territory of his own, that might actually weaken Valerius's position. After all, they were mates. Maybe he should request another slice of the world's pie and add it to Valerius and his own one. But he had no desire to take away anything from the other dragon shifters. Yet, there was the argument that Larian was repressing his people, so wouldn't it be good for him to take a part of his? But no, that would lead to war, and he felt Shioni ready to step in and save him. "This is my home," Caden answered, speaking to Valerius and not the reporters. "It's where I want to stay more than anything. Caden and I have agreed to share territory and rule together," Valerius stated. It was what Valerius had said before to him, but somehow it felt so momentous. The frantic scribbling of the reporters told him as much. "If Caden wishes to pursue additional territory, that will be discussed at a later time." Caden let out a breath that he'd been well aware that he was holding. It was Lisa Yang of the New York Times who raised a pen and said, "But how would the territories be divided? Would every dragon shifter be amenable to such a division? And would you put your significant martial might behind it?" Shioni did step in then. "Lisa, as King Valerius indicated, this is dragon shifter business that will be discussed at a later time." When Lisa opened her mouth to object, Shioni continued sweetly, "And it will be revealed to the public at that later time, too." Lisa smiled a little tightly, but nodded. "Wow, I didn't think she was going to give up so easily," Caden remarked. "Oh, she hasn't." Basically, Shioni just indicated to her that she'll get an exclusive on this information when the time is right. Valerius explained. It was so good to hear his mental voice. "Ah, clever Shioni. Always. Besides, Lisa knows that she might not get every question she wants answered, but she will get answers to tough questions we would normally keep quiet on if she plays ball," Valerius said. "It makes sense that you would share a territory. You're chosen mates," Claire quickly amended as Valerius scowled at her. His chosen mate really could put the fear of God into people with a dark look. But if Caden thought that his rambling, painful explanation, not to mention Valerius' scowl, would end questions about their romance, he was so very wrong. So very, very wrong. "What is love like between dragons?" Claire asked as she scrolled through evidently a ton of questions about his and Valerius' love life. The other two reporters stared at her as Claire once again trounced whatever unspoken rule about who asked questions and in what order, but Claire ignored them. "Love? Like?" Caden tilted his head to the side as his voice squeaked. Was she really asking if they made love the same way humans did? Or, God forbid, was she asking if they had sex in their dragon forms? And this had him wondering if that was going to happen. Could they have sex in their dragon forms? And indeed, what would that be like? It was definitely something that he and Valerius would be able to give each other as firsts. Valerius had never even touched another dragon, let alone made love to one. And he was certain that Raziel would rather burn other dragons to a crisp than mount them? Oh, God. He really had to stop thinking of this. He can only imagine his face right now. Is the love just between you guys? Or are Raziel and Iolaire in love too? Claire continued unblithely unaware of his growing embarrassment. Or maybe she was keenly aware of it. Do dragons make love? Can they have babies, even if you guys can't in your human forms? Babies? Valerius asked with an uplifted eyebrow. No babies. Ah, but I bet your dragon babies would be so cute. Claire's eyes twinkled. There were high spots of color on her cheeks. She was showing more crest-white teeth than any commercial. No dragon babies, Valerius said firmly. That is not possible. He clearly did not want speculation about dragon babies to get out of hand. It was actually a sore spot for shifters. They could not reproduce. That was the thing they gave up to become immortal and have their shared existence with their spirits. Will there be a dragon wedding, though? Oh, I'm sure everyone would want a dragon wedding, Claire enthused. Caden glanced over his parents. They looked a bit bemused, if embarrassed to hear about dragon babies. But Tilly appeared intrigued about a dragon wedding. We haven't gotten that far yet. Caden once more made his answer sound like a question, and it was accompanied by a strangled sound. Again, with the shy cuteness. But people really want to know all about you, King Caden, Claire grinned. Yeah, I'm not really comfortable with people being interested in me. Caden scrubbed a hand over the back of his head. That was really an understatement. But you're a hero. Today, I was scared earlier today, too. When Claire's eyebrows rose, he put up a hand to stave off the obvious questions. Not for myself. Being a dragon shifter means I'm pretty much bomb-proof. The reporters actually laughed. He even thought he saw some smiles on the camera operators' faces. That relaxed him some. What were you afraid of exactly? It was Lisa, the reporter from the New York Times, that followed up. I was afraid I wouldn't be fast enough, Caden said, recalling his frantic search for the greatest cluster of spirits, and then how he couldn't reach the bombs inside the store in his and Iolaire's dragon form, not to mention the difficulty freezing the bombers and not setting off the bombs. That even if I found the bombs, that I would be too late, that even with all the power I've been given, it wouldn't be enough. He glanced up at Valerius. Valerius and Raziel are so much more powerful than me and Iolaire, but not even they can stop all the bad things from happening. We can just do our best. Claire bobbed her head as if that made complete sense. Lisa looked thoughtful, as if he had given an answer that opened various questions. Carlos gave him a look that was all mock seriousness, but with a friendly edge. There was a time when you weren't fast enough. The people in the below? Lisa pressed almost gently, but the question was like walking through razor wire. Caden drew in a deep breath, even as Valerius stiffened. Both of them felt so guilty about that, so terrible beyond words. Valerius blamed himself. Caden was not responsible for that, Valerius said, his voice clipped. But he was part of what happened. He spurred what happened. Or did you make a mistake, King Valerius? Lisa asked. If love is a mistake, Caden blurted out. Valerius's eyebrows rose. Lisa stared at him, her forehead furrowing. Love? I don't see how... Love. Claire asked earlier about it not being love at first sight between Valerius and me, but love played the biggest role in what happened that day. I know it sounds corny and not something you might think of when you think of Valerius, but he loves our people, not just those in this territory either, Caden said, his mouth dry, his hands sweaty. But his actions caused some of those people's deaths, Lisa pointed out. Valerius thought that I was responsible for the bomb, Caden explained, rubbing his slick with sweat palms together. He would do anything to keep our people safe. Yet it ended in people not being safe, Lisa stated curtly. Valerius's hold on him tightened. He sensed that Valerius was now frozen, much as he had been before, but with too many emotions crowding his throat, and no way to express them other than dragonfire. Beyond Valerius, he saw his parents gazing upon him with love and pain. Caden, though, for the first time during this interview, actually felt quite peaceful. He understood all the reasons that Valerius had done what he did. He would share with the world the ones that were necessary for them to know. He thought I tried to kill people in the square, Caden stated simply. In fact, at the time, he didn't know that no one had died, and he feared that the bomb was the first act of terror I was going to commit. But why? Claire whispered. You hadn't done anything. He smiled at her sadly. Because to enter another dragon's territory without permission is pretty much an act of war. And I just seemed to show up out of nowhere when something terrible had happened at the 30th anniversary of the end of the last war. But I was wrong. Valerius' voice was low. I was so very wrong. Yet, I understand why you reacted like you did. You wanted to keep everyone safe. Everything that's happened since then. Caden was quiet, but then he nodded. Thinking of the damage I could have done, you had to stop it before it started. But you would never have hurt our people, Valerius stated. But you had no way of knowing that, Caden reminded him. Iolaire is just different. You are different. So the people who died, are you saying that their deaths are justified? Lisa pressed. What? No, that's not what my son said. His mother gasped and clutched the front of her skirt. Indeed, that's outrageous, his father's eyes snapped. You're mean, Tilly cried. I don't like you. Hey now, Wally harumphed. So typical of reporters, Rose snapped. He knew that Valerius' lips were drawn back in a snarl. Caden felt Shione coming nearer behind him. He was pretty sure that she was going to law Police's head off. That was the moment that everyone had warned him about, that he'd seen often enough times himself, the twisting of words. It had to be him, though, that answered this charge, not anyone else. It was time for him to step up and be honest. No. They are not justified. They never could be. And we will do everything we can to make sure that no more deaths happen, Caden said. And this time when he met Lisa's eyes, she lowered them. Caden then looked directly into the cameras. But the people who placed the bomb that started that terrible chain of events that day, they wanted collateral damage. They would say that every death is justified if they get what they want. What do they want? Lisa asked. Caden's gaze hardened. It doesn't matter, because we won't let them have it. I hope you're enjoying Dragon's Reign so far. Dragon's Reign is free for you to enjoy, but not free for us to make. There is a whole team working with me for audio editing, artwork, graphic design, and custom music. Most YouTube channels and podcasts have sponsors and take ads, but because of the kind of content we make, we can't run ads or get sponsors. Instead, we have other ways you can support me and the team behind this gay romance audiobook. One easy way is to buy or borrow my books from Amazon. They are all gay romance set in alternative worlds with vampires or shifters and other magical beings. You may not know that even if you borrow books with your Kindle Unlimited subscription at Amazon, they are free for you, but they still earn us money. The books are published under the name Ex Aratare, which actually means wraith in Romanian. And if you love audiobooks, you can get professionally narrated versions of every one of my books on audible.com. The link to my author page is in the description below, as well as to the first book of the series I think you'll really like. Thank you so much for your support. People like you enable me and the team to keep writing these stories of gay romance, magic, monsters, and true love, and producing this very fun podcast for everyone. Thank you.